This is your city speaking. This is Satellite, the eternal city, your two-tiered home, your undying beacon of hope. I see all of you as you step from your homes, head to your work, board the trains, walk the streets. I see the CEO of SatCorp as he stands at the window of his skyscraper, thinking that the sheer height he stands at elevates him above me. He is wrong. I see the lower mechanic toiling under the tracks, comforted in the knowledge that at least they are held safe in their city's arms. They are also wrong. I see an old woman, clutching in her arms a picture of a red-headed girl, stumbling through the streets of Lower toward the neon sign that blinks with her final hopes. The investigator she seeks has yet to wake, but the old woman believes that this is the best, the quickest, and maybe the only route to find the red-headed girl who did not board the train home last night. Of all the citizens that I watch spin, she may be the only one that is partially right. But she is wrong in one important aspect. The girl is not simply missing. It is much more sinister than that.
Good morning, fellow citizens. We have the promise of a beautiful dawn here in our wondrous city. Citizens of Upper, step outside and greet the sun. Citizens of Lower, stretch your legs to the nearest train station. The morning sky is not something to be missed.
Shut up.
Today we have a variety of news, including the weekly update for current prices for organic tissue donations. The price for organic tissue is high this week, and we'll be talking with one of the top researchers of SatCorp. He's making headway in an interesting new modification. I won't spoil too much for you, but, well, I can't help but give you a little teaser, now can I? Dr. Rasmussen is researching how the size of the human eye can be increased to mimic the appearance of owls, those mysterious and rare birds occasionally spotted on church property or north of the city. If you haven't seen an owl in person, consider going over to the New York District Museum. It's one of my favorite places, and I would love to meet some of my fellow bird...
J. Murphy was a little too cheery for me in the morning, but the annoyance his voice caused was a surefire way to make sure I didn't fall back asleep. I was only a little later than usual to the office, which was still somewhat disappointing since I lived in a small apartment directly above it. I was wearing my standard getup, a white, long-sleeved knit shirt, dark wash jeans, and polished Oxford shoes. I tucked my 9mm handgun in my shoulder holster and walked to the front of my office to unlock the door. It was barely after 8 in the morning, but already I could see the silhouette of someone standing on the other side of the door. The woman on the other side was slightly stooped and plump, with a wrinkled face and green eyes red and swollen, likely from crying given that she was still sniffling. She must have been in her early 60s, which was a rare sight in Lower, since most people didn't make it that long down here. There was a piece of paper clutched in her hands, and I could just make out the logo for my office on top of it before the woman slipped it into her jacket and cleared her throat.
I'm looking for Investigator Jack Hart.
You found her?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was expecting something else.
Yeah, people usually are. Come on in. I walked the woman past an empty secretary desk that was currently being used as storage for old case files in my coat and into my private office. I pulled back a chair for her to sit in and clicked on an old electric kettle that sputtered with a few sparks and then hummed to life. The woman looked around the messy office somewhat warily, but settled in with a look of determination. It was easy to tell the woman was nervous or scared, wringing her hands.
Please, call me Esther. I'm here because my My granddaughter's missing.
The woman dug out a photo of a pretty girl with red hair and green eyes, and handed it to me across the cluttered desk. Freckles dotted her face, and she was giving the camera a warm smile. Pretty girl. That color hair and eyes is a rare combination nowadays.
Her mother had it too.
Did you go to the police?
She's only been missing for a night. They won't look for her yet.
How do you know she's missing and not just hung over at a stranger's house?
Because she always comes home after work, even if she's going out in the evening.
Want some coffee?
Oh, no thank you.
I ripped the top of the coffee packet and unceremoniously dumped it into the stained mug, filling it to the brim with the boiling water. All right, so your granddaughter...
Amy.
Okay, yeah. Amy didn't show up after work last night. Where's she work?
She works at the bank a few blocks north of the Southern New York train station. The small one, just a local branch.
All right. Anything else you can tell me?
Yes, I know that there were problems at her work. Things were going missing from the bank vault, and they suspect it was one of the employees.
Do you think it could have been Amy?
What? No, of course not. Amy is a sweet girl. She wouldn't do that.
I held eye contact with Esther for a moment, crooking an eyebrow before offering a shrug. She seemed certain. Resolute. Okay. Well, I can look into this for you. I assume you've done enough research to know what my rate is?
Yes.
Good. Then sign on the line below, and I'll find your granddaughter. Purposely bought a home and office space combo that was both near a train stop and near a WASP station so that I didn't need to constantly pay a taxi or own my own car to get around. While it could be dangerous to walk the streets of Lower, especially at night, the gun under my shoulder and the weight of the brass knuckles in my pocket made it so that I was rarely too concerned. Lower Satellite in the morning was a study in gray. Light flickered through the grates above in patches, disappearing occasionally as people moved overhead on the streets of Upper. Most people left the lights on and Lower at all times, so that the misty canvas was pierced by the neon shine of signs advertising everything from diners to organic tissue donation clinics. I passed by one such establishment that had a line down the block and briefly thought of Jay Murphy's morning broadcast. It made me sick. The bank was conveniently not too far away from the train station. It was a towering building, tall enough that the top of it was incorporated into the grating that separated Upper and Lower Satellite. I pushed open the heavy glass doors and stepped inside, noting that the WASP police detail had been augmented by a small private security force, dressed in black with a white lock logo on the front of their vests. The lobby was mostly empty, and my entrance immediately drew the attention of one of the tellers. He waved me over, offering a beaming customer service smile. The man had a name tag pinned crookedly to his lapel that read Martin Beasley.
Good morning, ma'am. How can I help you?
Morning. I'm looking for an Amy Rose. Any idea where she might be or when she might be coming in?
I'm sorry, ma'am. It's against company policy to give out shift information outside of scheduled appointments. Feel free to call.
Mr. Beasley, I'm Private Investigator Jack Hart. Please answer the question. If it would be better, we could talk in a private room, or I could talk with your boss. I reached into my coat pocket and withdrew my private investigator license, holding it up to the glass that separated us.
Oh, of course. Investigator, follow me.
The man led me out of the main lobby and down a small side hall. He seemed nervous, wiping sweaty hands on his jeans as he stared at the tile passing by below his feet.
I'll get someone from management to come join you.
Thanks, Martin. It was a few moments before a woman entered the room, wearing an irritated look and a drab pantsuit. She nodded a greeting and sat briskly at the table.
I'm Mrs. Hevis. What is it that you're looking for, investigator?
An employee of yours didn't make it home last night. I'm looking to find her.
I assume you're talking about Miss Amy Rose? We're also looking for her. Please don't put your shoes on the table.
Oh, my apologies. Old habit. Was she slated to work this morning?
She was slated to be interviewed this morning. We've been talking with every employee concerning the items that have been going missing from the vaults.
Yes. My client had mentioned something like that. You thinking that Amy might be your thief?
Well, not only has she conveniently gone missing the night before her interview, but there was also a large heist last night, the largest theft of valuables yet.
Maybe her final hit before lying low.
Certainly seems that way. But I'll tell you what, if you find her or our missing items, I'll give you a bonus. I sent the case over to the local WASP station, but they've been taking their sweet time, as though they have anything more important to deal with.
No promises. That's not the gig I'm working. But if you can give me a list of the missing items, I'll keep an eye out.
Consider it done. That'll be the list from me.
One more thing before you go. Can I take a look at your security footage from last night?
We'd be happy to share it, but it doesn't exist. We have footage of the small heists that occurred, but the footage from last night is completely wiped.
Strange. Last night is missing, but you still have tapes to the other nights? Can you identify the perp on the tapes that you have?
Unfortunately, the person in the tapes is, as of yet, unidentified. It seems they knew the location of the cameras and could keep their faces from showing directly into them. They were wearing some kind of disguise, maybe a wig.
Smart.
And inconvenient. Is there anything else you need, investigator?
Not currently. Thanks for your time. The woman nodded curtly and exited the room, leaving me to be escorted down the hall by one of the hired security. The guard was close enough now that I could make out the writing under the lock logo, which read Lock and Key Security. I stepped out onto the streets and immediately looked up. There were cameras all over Upper Satellite, and especially around all the important places in Lower. There were very few places considered more important than the banks. I walked a widening circle out from the building, flagging every camera I saw and a message to a friend of mine that worked in the Lower New York District WASP station that could maybe get me the footage. On the brief train ride home, I sent another message to a few of my runners who did groundwork for me, asking them to scout the pawn shops for some of the missing items. Johnny, my most reliable contact, always had a way of finding things, be it drugs, missing items, or dangerous people. I had a few missed calls in the office that I ignored, walking right past the empty secretary desk where I deposited my long black pea coat, and continued up the stairs at the back and into my apartment. I poured myself a glass of motor oil whiskey, a Lower favorite, and sat down in front of my projector. All I could do now was wait. Why did Johnny text me? What could he want to tell me this early in the morning?
Yo, Jack. Found that ugly blue necklace. Pawn shop, about a 30-minute cab ride from the bank. 24-hour pawn. I took care of it. The guy will show you his security tapes.
I rolled out of bed, scrambled into my clothes, and bolted down the steps and out onto the street, which was lit exclusively by neon lights this early in the morning. In Lower, the dawn came later and the sun set faster than in Upper, so I was used to navigating the streets in only the too bright, eerie glow of the advertisements that would burn themselves onto your retina if you stared at them too long. This pawn shop looked like any other, cluttered with old tech and jewelry that was worth way less than what was being asked. I approached a thin man with a gaunt face standing behind the counter that was leering at me like he already knew who I was.
You that friend of Johnny's?
That'd be me.
Well, a friend of Johnny's is a friend of mine.
The man glanced around the empty store, his gaze lingering at the entrance as though he was checking to see if I'd brought along someone who'd bust him for selling stolen goods. It had to have been an act. Every pawn store sold stolen goods. It was damn near expected.
Right, well, you didn't get this from me.
He pulled out a tablet that had a broken screen with a chunk missing out of one of the corners and brought it flickering to life. The picture was fuzzy, but a man with dark brown hair slicked back and wearing a gray suit was clearly visible on the footage. I paused it right as the man looked up into the camera. Well, that's certainly not a red-headed woman.
Nah, I would have remembered that. Tell Johnny we're even.
Yeah, all right. A piece of friendly advice? If I were you, I'd either sell that necklace now or get ready to give it up. The miserable dawn was just beginning to drift through the grates above, dimming the harshness of the neon lights. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the names until I found one of a wasp I could tolerate.
Officer Dave Smith speaking.
Hey Smith, I got a lead on the bank case floating around your precinct. In return, you mind picking up a perp for me?
Sure thing, Jack. I'll send a rookie to get him. What you got for me?